Okay, so we got our barrel delta ring on it. I didn't have to take off the upper, I just did for demonstration. But now we're ready to pull the delta ring off. It comes off just off the end like so. Put that aside because we're not going to need that next. In fact, we're not going to need it at all anymore with the new upper we're going to put on, or the free float tube. Now this is where I was telling you about the scratching of the barrel. As you notice here, there's some marks done from the vise itself. It's an aluminum vise, and this is little shavings of aluminum stuck inside there's little bitty grooves on the barrel. So just rubbing this with a little bit of an abrasive material, like maybe a little bit of steel wool covered in oil, is going to take that off. So don't be too freaked out if you end up scratching up what you think is scratched up your barrel. But anyways, next we're going to take our upper, put it back on. There's an alignment pin right here at the front. And then we're going to take our free float tube. We'll pull it back out of the box. Right here. And inside here is a little ring we're going to have to loosen up. Or take out rather. It's going to be held in place with this particular one. It's a Seekins Precision BAR rail. So I'm going to undo that screw, set it down right there. And then this is going to replace our delta ring. This is going to actually hold the free float tube onto it. So I'm going to slip this over the barrel like so. And we'll just screw this in place. Now I'm going to have to put this back in the barrel vise in order to get this on properly. Because if you notice here, our gas ring, or our gas tube, man, excuse me, can't get the right words, it's going to have to line up with one of these holes here on the front. Let me see if my camera will show that. So behind here into the upper is the hole for the gas tube, and that has to line up with this. And we can use our multi-tool for this. That's what the other side is for, with these 3 pins. And they should fit in some of these holes. So you should be able to find a perfect match like so. So now we can use this to torque it down. And I'm not going to put too much torque. I mean, you saw how much the delta ring had on it. It wasn't very much at all. So actually that lines up pretty good. I just need to torque it a little bit. I think I can probably get away with this without putting it in the vise. So let's give it a shot. I'm going to find some holes that match up. I'm just going to give it a little bit of twist. See if I can't get it to... Yep. Okay. I think that's going to line up fine. Alright, so next, now that we've got this on and lined up with our gas tube, we'll be ready to put this on in a minute, but first we need to replace our gas block. Now the gas block we took off was the A2 gas block, and we need to remove the gas tube. The gas tube is what makes it cycle. And right here, there's a tiny little roll pin, so we're going to use a punch. We're going to knock that roll pin out, because that's what's holding the gas tube to the block itself. So let me get my tools and we'll get right on that. Alright, let's knock that gas tube out. Got me a punch and a hammer. And we want to take it clear out. Almost got it out, as you can see. But the gas tube should come out at this point. You'll see where it lines up. The roll pin goes through there, and this is the gas port where the gas is directed from the gas block and into the tube and works the action. So let's go ahead and knock this out the rest of the way. There we go. Got that sucker out. And now we'll take, I'm going to wipe this gas tube down. Now we'll take our new gas block and we'll slide in our gas tube, and it's important to have this hole line up with the gas hole in the gas block. So we're going to do it like so. And then you should see, let me see if I can get my camera to focus here. You should see the hole where the roll pin is going to go. If you can get that lined up just right, you're going to be good to go as far as making sure your gas port is all lined up. See if I can tap it in with a hammer at first. Get it started. Yeah, that's going to go. And I'm doing this without a vise, so I'm getting pretty lucky in this case. But I may have to put this gas block in a vise to tap it the rest of the way. But nope, it's going in pretty good. So I'm considering myself lucky here. And I'm trying to do this with as minimal tools as possible, because I know most people don't have a full set of gunsmith stuff. Alright, so here is our new gas block with the roll pin in place and our gas tube. So next let's install it in the upper. Alright, so now we're ready to put on our new gas block and our gas tube. And we're going to slide it over the end of the barrel. And sometimes it can be a tight fit. So what I like to do is put a little oil on the barrel right here. So I'm going to pull out a little oil. Drop that on there. Just to help it slide on a little better. And so then I'm going to get that lined up with the top of the upper itself. So we want to go in that first hole right there, and that should line up with the upper itself. So then we'll slide this on. We have to wiggle it back and forth or so. And we want to push it all the way that way up against that little ridge right there on the barrel. So you notice inside the gun itself, you can see the gas tube poking through there. Everything looks pretty good lined up wise. So now we're ready to tighten up our gas block. And once again, if you saw my other videos on putting the rifle together, I'm just going to hand torque it down. Because, you know, if it comes loose, I can always come back and do a little more later. But you can use Loctite if you really want to, but I don't really find the need for it in most cases. I'm going to check one more time to make sure we're nice and lined. I'm looking lined up. I'm looking down the barrel, and we're a little off. When I tighten that up, it got a little skewed, I think. So we want to make sure that our looking down the end of the barrel that a gas tube is riding right on top of the barrel, and we are now. So let's finish tightening this up. Now, alright, so now we're ready to put the upper on. Okay, so I got my new free float tube and I've got all my screws to put it on with. And remember, this is a mid-length free float tube and we're putting it on a carbine length gas system, so the free float tube is going to go beyond the gas block right here. You need to take into consideration if you're putting something on like a different gas block like I just did and replacing that A2 and using a carbine length free float tube or whatever it is, because once you take those taper pins out, it does leave a big old notch in the barrel there. So that is visible, or it can be, in this case with the gas block I'm using. But since we're putting a mid-length free float tube, it's going to cover that up, so you're really not going to see it in this case. Just keep that in mind. Alright, so this is just going to slip over the front. Just like so. And then we're going to use our set screws here. And keep in mind here that we are screwing into aluminum, so you want to be careful not to torque it down too much. I'm just going to finger tight all of them at first, and then we'll come back and kind of just finger torque them down, if you will. So I'm just going to get all the holes populated. Alright, so here we go. The free float tube is added. It's fairly nice. I like this. I like the tapered end right here. And so now we're ready to put on our muzzle device. So I'm going to put it back into the device and tighten it down. And if your muzzle device is timed, which means if it's a muzzle brake or it has the, I guess the dust blast shield like you see on the I guess it's the A2 flash hider. I can't quite remember. But you will need to time it just right, but that's what the crush washer is for. Okay, so I've got the muzzle device pad put back on, and you'll notice what I meant about timing. This is the top of the muzzle device, and it lines up with the top of the upper. And if you flip it upside down, you can definitely tell, you know, there's no ports on the bottom. So we have our muzzle device timed, and we're all back together. So anyways, that is what you're going to run into if you decide to replace the factory A2 front sight / gas block. Well, thanks for watching, and please subscribe for more competition shooting and gun reviews. And don't forget to check out the AR15 build. I'll put a link in here at the end of the video. Thanks.